In this movie we're going to build the house again, but this time we're going to add more detail. So we're going to add colors to our building, we're going to look at lighting, we're going to look at our texturing options, and we're going to look at some of our rendering options as well. So while it looks like we're covering the same house, we're going to build it slightly differently, and we're going to learn a little bit more. So let's get started. So we're going to start with the rectangle again. I'm going to move a lot quicker through this part again, so that we've already covered a few times. So we're going to go 5M in that direction, 10M in that direction, enter once, enter again, and then we're going to create another one. And we really want to start from that corner there, so just make sure you see that there. So 4M, tab, minus 4M, enter, select them both, right click, add surface, and then we're going to use our push-pull tool, and we're going to pull that up by 4.5 meters, 4500. And then we're going to build the roof. We're building the roof the same way we have with all the other ones. We've got our automatic working plane turned on. So I'm going to come up at 30 degrees, find the midpoint here, and down to there, across to there, and pull that down to this corner here. So there, touch the midpoint, 30 degrees, there, come across, and pull that back. And then I can select all of those, right click, add solids, one nice big solid object. So now I'd like to put the footing that goes around my house. So I'm going to turn the view so we're looking from the other side. So this is the underside here. And we want to use something different. So I'm going to use this one here, which is the double polygon tool. And I should be able to use my double polygon tool and snap around my building. And I'll check it to make sure I've snapped all the corners. Don't forget to zoom in and double click where we started. So now that we've created that object, if you've kept it live, I just accidentally just clicked again, but there it is there, there's our polygon. And what we should be able to do is go back to our push-pull tool and extrude that and lift it up or lift it down. So we're going to lift that up by about 400 millimeters. So the distance 400, enter once, and you see that went down, the distance 400, so minus 400 to come up. Now the reason for that is that when I created my polygon, I was actually looking at the underside of my building. So there we are, so that's that part. So there's that part of our building. We need to put a floor through here, so we're going to turn the building over again. We're going to use our extract tool like we've done previously. So extract tool. Let's look at our options. We need a planar object and enter. Last time we used our offset tool, didn't we? So we're going to offset this. We're going to offset this by 400. We're going to offset the original, and then we're going to use our push-pull tool. And what we want to do is to use our push-pull tool with the third mode. That, click on our building. Let's bring that up, and that subtracts the inside of our building. And you can see we've now got the inside of our building like that. Now we haven't got a floor through here, so we need to finish this off and create a floor. I'm going to use my rectangle tool. We're going to highlight that corner there, down to this corner here. Going to highlight that face there, down to there. And then what I can do is I can add those two together. So right click, add surface. And then I can use my push-pull tool. I'm going to pull that up. Minus 400. Enter once, enter again. So that's created the base of my building. Now in the last movie we looked at this, our clip cube, so that we can actually see the building. I just don't want to accidentally stretch my building, so I'm going to go back to my selection tool, click on my clip cube, let's look at the top. There it is there, let's click on that face, pull that through, and you can see there, I just pull that through again. There you can see that I've actually got a thick floor, so that's starting to look okay. So what I'd like to do now is build the roof. Let's get rid of our clip cube. We'd like the roof to be a different color. So just remember we can add color to these things just by selecting it and choosing a color. Maybe a slight bluey color for that, like an engineering brick. This one might be made out of stucco, so I might have a slightly yellowy color to it. And just find a color that you prefer. It's far too yellow for me. So it's got a slight stucco And what I'd like to do now is to create a roof. Now I want the roof to be independent, and I'm going to use the extract tool again. So I'm going to slow down now because we're going to do it a little bit more. So let's go back to the extract tool. The extract tool has options just up here. So we don't want to create planar objects this time, but we do want to create surfaces. So we want that surface, hold down the shift key, that surface, and that surface. So you hold down the shift key so you can select all those surfaces. Enter, and that creates a group. Modify, ungroup. Now we have here NURBS surfaces. I want to add those together. So model, add solids, and it creates one solid addition. Now the solid addition needs to have a thickness. I'm going to use my shell solid tool, about 6 inches, 150 millimeters thick. That'll be fine. So let's select that face, hold down the shift key again, that face, keep the shift key down, all those faces, and then hit the enter key, and it creates a shell. Now it creates a shell with inside. I don't want that. I want the shell to be the other side. I just need to turn my view a little bit, and there's my shell. Now it's hard to see that this shell is separate from that part of the building. So let's color it, give it a slight grey color, and now it's easy to see. So what I'd like to do now is to add eaves to my roof. So I'm going to go back to select my roof. I'm going to use my push-pull tool. I'm going to use it in the first mode, which is the extrude face mode, and I'm going to pull that out by 400 millimeters. Same on this side. Bring that out and I can touch that part of the building. So let's just turn our view around. We'll have a look at this side here. I'm going to pull this side out here, and this side, it pulls out both sides together. 400 millimeters, enter once, enter again. I'm also going to do this side of the building just here. So let's pull that out. 400, enter, enter. We need to go back to our preferences and change back to the move face mode, because I want to pull that down and I want that to come down the right amount. Now you'll notice when I do that, it's not pulling the other face. So let's just escape from that and we'll undo it. So if I use the second mode here and I pull that one down, 400, enter, enter, and then pull this face out. So let's go 400, enter once, enter again, and you can see it's brought those out and they line up. So let's just turn our view around to here, and we're going to pull that face down, 400, enter once, enter again. This one here, pull that down, 400, enter, enter. So we're now starting to get a building which has got an eaves to it. Pull that out, 400 again, enter, enter. So we're now starting to get different colors on our building, which is quite fun. So now we're going to create the front door. Use the rectangle tool. This is a technique we've already used previously. So I'm going to click here. My front door is about 900 wide, and it's about 2 meters, 6 foot 6 inches high. I also want to have around that a frame that goes around it. So I'm going to use this tool here. I'm going to use my separation that way, 200 millimeters again, 8 inches. So let's click there. I'm going to come up to that corner, click, click, and double click there at the bottom. So now I've got a few bits and pieces. I can now start to use things like the push-pull tool, and I can pull this part out. So let's pull that out there, and we'll bring that out by about 4 inches, 100 millimeters. You'll notice that I can now give that a different color to the rest of the building, which is kind of cool. Rectangle tool, so I want to touch that point there. I want to line up. So this is my window. I'm going to go back to my double polyline tool, go around that window, and I'm going to use the push-pull tool on that. Let's pull that out, and again 4 inches, 100 millimeters. So now I need to punch a hole for the window and I need to punch a hole for the door, but I don't really want to lose those two things. No, don't worry about that. So back to my push-pull tool. I'm going to use the subface mode. Click on that, click on my model, pull that through, click. Select my rectangle, select my building, pull that through again, and now I've got a hole in my building. So now when we turn around, we can actually walk into our building and we can see into it. We might want to put some window joinery in. How do we do that? Again, we can use our rectangle tool. We're going to use this mode here, the rectangle. So I'm going to go to this corner here, click. So what I'd really like this to be, we just have a look carefully, we want this to be reasonably small. So here we want that to be about 50 millimeters. Enter once, enter again. Now that should still be selected and it should still be able to be extruded. So we can pull it up to that point there, and that creates the first part of our window. Now maybe it's a little bit big. So one of the tricks we've got with Vectorworks is if you double click, you can see the original shape used to create that object. There it is there. And it's, if I just click there, you can see its width is 100. Let's make that 50 millimeters, about 2 inches, and 2 inches that way, 50 millimeters that way. When I exit the extrude, you can see the change is now there in my 3D object. We can do that with any of our extruded objects. So if we have this object here, this was extruded. If I double click on that, I can actually see the shape used to create it. I could make changes to it. I could use my reshape tool and I could add a Bezier curve to that. And that's changed my extrusion. Do the same with this. Back to my selection tool, double click, there's my shape, reshape tool, click and pull that up. Now I can't see the other object. If I turn this on so I can see other objects, I can actually touch that other point there, make sure I'm lining up with it, and those two should line up with each other. Now we still need some steps out here, so I'm going to create some steps. I want the steps really to line up with that part of my building, so I can touch that. It might be easier if I zoom in. I'll show you what I'm doing. So I touch that point there, I get a little red square, come out to this face here, click, and there's my rectangle. Now I'm using the wrong mode, so I'll just change that, and we want to touch that point there, and I'm going to hit the G key there to line up with that. And I can always change this later if I want to. So there's my first part of my step, and then I want to have an object from there up to here, midpoint, and that wants to be my step coming out like that. So there are my steps leading up to my front door. No front door just yet. I need a front door at somehow, so we're going to go to my midpoint here, click. This will be my rectangle for my front door. Click, and then I can pull that across, touch that corner, and there's my front door. Now it's pretty thick. If I double click on that, you'll see there's my rectangle used to create it. It's very thick, but I'm going to change that and make it thinner, and thinner again. So now it's time to carry on and put more doors, put more windows, and have a little bit more fun. Don't forget to put the chimney that we did previously with our object. I'm going to show you a new way to do that chimney. So let's create a chimney here. When I go to a front view, there's my chimney on the ground. I'm going to use a move command, modify, move 3D, and let's move that in 3D 6 meters. So what we should have is that object is sitting up there above my roof. Let's move it again. I want it to be a little bit higher than that, 2 meters. So there it is there. So it's actually too high. It's too high for what I really want, but I want to leave it there to show you a technique. I'm going to use my project tool, and the project tool has several modes. I'd like to use this one here, which is the project object or the add mode. Click on that object there and you can see the arrows going down. Now if the arrow is going the wrong direction, click on these buttons until it goes in the right direction, click on your roof, and it projects that rectangle down onto your roof, which is pretty cool. Once we've got it there, we can use our push-pull tool and we can change the height of that chimney. So let's just turn our view a little bit because I'd like to put a circle on the top of that. And I'm going to start with a circle here. And I just need to zoom in so I can see what I've got here. So there's my circle there. That's one circle. Let's pull that up. And I'm going to bring that up by about 2 feet, 600 millimeters. Now we do have a range of tools in Vectorworks, some really cool ones. This Deform tool, we haven't looked at this before. The Deform tool has lots of different options. We can twist objects, we can taper objects, we can bulge objects. I'm going to try tapering. I want to taper this object. Click there. I'm going to come out here and click again, because then I can move my cursor closer to my object and it will taper my chimney in for me. Now just before we start getting into lighting and rendering, my building is not sitting on anything. It's got no ground at all to it. So what I'm going to need to do is to create some form of ground. I'm just going to use a rectangle, just a large rectangle, and then I'm going to pull that down just a small amount just to give it some ground. The reason I'm doing that is so that when I put lighting and I cast shadows, I can actually see it. In terms of lighting, the easiest light we've got is the one called the Heliodon. This light called the Heliodon allows us to place an object in our drawing. We'll just go back to a top plan view to see this. So let me just place the light over here. Where would we like to be? Wellington, Invercargill, Auckland, and we can set that to our zone, but then we can choose the time of the day of the year. Maybe it's summer solstice, maybe it's winter solstice, and it changes the direction of the sun. So let's just have a look now at a quick 3D view. So we'll go to a right isometric view, and there you can see the light coming across. So I've selected, I just need to select my light object there. There's my Heliodon, and here it is here. So let's change this between summer solstice and winter solstice. It's currently winter. Let's choose summer, and you can see not only is the sun higher in the sky, but the ground is brighter, and it's brighter because more light is hitting it in the summer because of the angle. So let's have a look. So do we want this to be lunchtime? Let's call it 12 noon, and you can see the shadow changed. Let's change this and we'll call it 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 1500 hours, and there's the sun's moved. We can also create a solar study where we can actually watch the sun during the year. Let's just zoom in so we can see that. So that's the easiest one to do, is that Heliodon, and it creates a beautiful little sun for us. Next, let's have a look at some of our rendering options. We can have wireframe rendering, we can have hidden line rendering, we can have OpenGL, which is the one we've been using most of the time, and it's where the building stays rendered. We can have fast renderworks, a little bit rough. We can have final quality renderworks, which is a little better, and we can have custom renderworks. Now my preference is to use custom renderworks. You can't see why at the moment. I'm just going to bring up a palette that I need. So I need the window, palette, visualization. We're looking for lights, and we want to select on document. So it's a right click, select on document. So let's change this to 10 o'clock in the morning, because now the sun's on the front of my building. And you can see much more of the modeling of the building in this area. Let's have a look at our custom renderworks options. So here we want to turn on anti-aliasing. We want textures, we want shadows, we want colors. We're not going to worry about camera effects, and we want everything to be all high. So let's just OK that and see what happens. Now it should take longer to render, but you'll notice that it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot crisper. Let's go back to my custom RenderWorks options. What I would like to look at is my lighting options. So we want to have normal lighting. We want to have a little bit of background lighting, not much. I'd like you to turn on ambient occlusion. We're going to have environmental lighting from HDRI white. OK. And OK again. Now you'll notice there's quite a change, and it's quite a lot better. You can see there that you can see the texture in here, or the colors in here. Unfortunately, the colors I've chosen make it look a little bit like a cartoon, but you can choose other colors. So once we've got that the way we like, we can save that as a RenderWorks style. Here are some RenderWorks styles, and these are the ones that come with Vectorworks. And you can choose one of these, and let's try a realistic exterior final. And that should be a reasonably nice color. And there it is. You can see it's got the sort of things we want. That RenderWorks style is editable. This is our lesson 3 here. Let's have a look at this. Let's right click and we'll edit that. And what we'd like to look at is no blurriness. We'll leave the displacement mapping, we'll turn those two off. Let's have a look at our quality. All high. Lighting. This is what we've chosen before pretty much, except I'm going to bring that back down. I want that turned on. So we're not applying artistic edges, but we've got a physical sky mostly sunny, and environmental reflections from mostly sunny. That'll, if we've got anything that's got a texture that we need, it will actually create the light and have it bounce on there. So there we are. We have this ability to change our rendering. We haven't looked much at textures yet. Let's look at render, and here we have the ability to use what are known as textures. Now every time I change something, it's going to re-render the view. So what I am going to do is to change this back to OpenGL. That'll make it just a little bit quicker. So let's have a look at what kind of textures we have available. If we have a look at our Vectorworks libraries, defaults, our RenderWorks textures, we have some concrete textures. So for example, we've got our building here, and what we really want is some sort of stucco. So let's type the word stucco in the search area, and there's a stucco white which has got a surface hatch. Let's select that, and that should apply a white stucco to the building. If we click just here, we can edit this white stucco. So it's a color, which is an image, reflectivity. Let's edit that, and we're going to add a filter. So we want to filter this with a yellowy color, maybe some sort of orange, yellow. We really would like to filter it with a brown color, so let's look at some Resine Lumbercider colors. We want one of these browner colors maybe. Click OK and OK, and that should render that in that stucco or that Resine color. This object here, we really want that to have the same texture. So I'll choose texture, and it's got that same stucco texture. What about the roof? Well, there must be some roof color textures we can use. So let's have a look at those, and we'll search for roof. What sort of roof items have we got? We can't find anything. What about metal? We've got brushed metal, chrome metal, corrugated metal. How about that one? So let's select that, and we've now got our roof. Now you might notice in this case my texture is going the wrong direction. Let's edit my corrugated metal roof. Let's edit my image, and I want to rotate that 90 degrees. Okay, okay, and so I've rotated that. Now because of the type of roof or the type of object I've used to create my roof, you'll notice that I've got the same texture all over. So here we have the ground. Let's give that a texture, and we're going to look for a texture. So I just click there, and we want a grass type texture. There's a couple of grass textures that I've got in my own library. What about in here? Defaults. There's some grass here. There's a landscape grass. Let's choose that one. And there's my grass. If you want to scale that grass up, we can click on that scale, and it scales up the grass for us. We could use weatherboards. The Americans call that siding, so we need to look for a siding texture. Siding, they call it. So there's a grey one there, there's a board and batten one. I'll just choose the yellow. Now you'll notice that we've got the siding going the correct way, and then we've got it going vertically because of the way we've created our 3D objects. This is something to do with our mapping. Let's go Planar Mapping. And let's try Perimeter, Auto Align Plane. And now they're all going vertically. And so if I change my rotation to 90, I've now got horizontal weatherboards. You might want these to be stone, so we'll choose a texture there, click there, we want stone. We've got stacked stone, granite, or maybe there's a concrete that we can use. Now this particular texture needs to be downloaded from the internet. You may have noticed there was a little cloud icon, so that needs to be downloaded. And now I've got stone steps leading up to my door. If you want that texture to be larger, don't forget you can scale it. Now at the moment it's scaled at 1. If you type in 10, it will scale it 10 times. So maybe that's too much. Maybe it just needs to be 4 or 5. You can also rotate that texture if you want. So you could rotate that to 90 degrees and have the texture going the other direction.